Okay, are we started? Now we are. Hi everybody, welcome to our webinar this evening to discuss the Edmonton Green Quieter Neighbourhood proposal. My name is Louise Bradley. I work for a company called ECF. We've been brought in to assist with the engagement around this project. I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes to see if we've got any more people joining before I'll take you through the agenda for tonight and some housekeeping. Okay, we're going to make a start. We can go to the agenda first. Ryan, could you move us on to the agenda slide, please?
I think we're just having some technical issues. One moment.
Yeah, that's okay. Seem to have resolved it now. Okay, thank you. So this evening's webinar will start with a welcome. So thank you all for taking your time this evening to join, and some housekeeping in terms of how this evening will run. The team will then take you through an introduction to the Journeys and Places programme that is being run by Enfield Council, and what that means in terms of designing a quieter neighbourhood for the Edmonton Green area. What has been done in terms of communications and engagement so far, and how that will feed into the next steps. And then we'll go over to you for questions. Next slide, please. Sorry, we're just having a few technical hiccups. Move on in a moment. Here we go. Okay, so just some housekeeping before we start this evening. You will see at the top of your toolbar a Q&A tool. If you click on that, that will open a dialog box for you. Please type your questions in there. We will then put those to the panel for Enfield Council, and they'll answer your questions following the presentation. After tonight's webinar, they will review the FAQs on the project website and update those with the questions that have been asked tonight so that you can see them on there. Just to let you know as well that this webinar is being recorded and will be published on tonight's website. And if you have any comments on the proposed interventions and you haven't taken part in anything so far apart from maybe this webinar, then please do go online using the link there to complete the survey online. The engagement period will close on the 11th of February. I'm now going to pass you to the team, and they'll introduce themselves one by one, and then we'll start this evening's presentation. So if we'll start with you, please, Hassan.
Yep. Thank you, Louise. Hi all, my name is Hassan. I lead the Neighbourhoods workstream for the Journeys and Places programme.
I'm Ryan. Oh, I think Ryan may be frozen. Christina?
Good evening, everyone. My name's Christina Gordon. I am the Journeys and Places Head of Program Management Office, so I provide some structure and support behind the scenes. Thank you. I will now pass to Mikey.
Hi everyone, I am Mikey Christoforou. I am the Journeys and Places Communications Officer, and I'll now pass over to Liz.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name's Liz Rhodes. I'm the Communications and Engagement Lead for the Journeys and Places program.
Great, thank you, Liz. Liz will now take you through the first part of our presentation. And as we've already said, at the end of the presentation, there'll be the opportunity to ask questions.
Just wait for it to move on. Okay. So thanks everybody for coming tonight. Like Louise has said, we are delivering this Quieter Neighbourhood project through the Journeys and Places program. So I'm going to tell you a bit about the program, who we are, what we do, and why we exist. So a bit about us. We are in a climate emergency. So we're trying to encourage more people to walk, wheel and cycle across the borough, particularly for their short journeys, so that we can have a positive impact on the climate. That's a real big driver for everything that we do. Poor air quality affects our health. So similarly, transport is one of the biggest contributors to poor air quality, and that's something we're looking to tackle. Daily physical activity is important for us all. So as I've mentioned, we're looking to encourage more people to get active through their everyday travel behaviours. And that transport is, you know, something that we all do every day. We do it for short journeys, long journeys, and we really encourage people to build in physical activity as part of those journeys. Transport has an impact on social equity and inclusion. So it's really about accessibility for everybody and equity for all through our transport network and transport options that are available to us. There's a high number of motor miles travelled and they're congesting our roads. So we've seen a huge increase in the number of motor miles travelled across roads in not only the borough but across London in the past 10 and 20 years, and that's just continuing to grow, causing congestion that we're all experiencing every day. And streets and roads should be safe for everyone. So we really take a look at places like schools where young people are gathering and moving between, as well as particular community hubs, town centres, neighbourhoods, as well as major A roads and quieter streets. So we think that they should be safe for everyone. We work to the Mayor's Transport Strategy and Vision Zero, so really looking to ensure that there's zero deaths or injuries, significant injuries on our roads. Next slide, please. Sorry, it's a bit slow tonight. So we've got 4 pillars as part of the program and areas of work, I suppose you could say. So the first is delivering a walking and cycling network. This includes cycle lanes, but it also includes cycle and walking routes. So that might be signed or marked routes. It could be through wayfinding signage, you know, on street pole signage or on the roads. It could be marked in other ways. But these are really to link together north, south, east, west of the borough so that people can get from their homes to where they need to go by active travel. Next slide. The second pillar is enhancing town centres and the public realm. So we look at high streets and town centres, public spaces and the public realm that comes along with those areas, and look to enhance them with greenery, seating, things to see and do, and of course making them safe and with good transport options. Next slide. Thirdly, we've got making neighbourhoods safer for all road users to walk, wheel and cycle. So quieter neighbourhoods is part of this pillar, as well as school streets, where we look at areas where you know, people tend to live and hang out. They've got their local places, local shops, schools, local community hubs, and look to improve those areas with better transport options for active travel, greenery, and of course making them safer near the roads. Next slide. And finally, informing and inspiring about active travel. So we run a number of community services, including cycle training for schools as well as adults and families. We've got the All Ability Cycling Hub in Bush Hill Park, which is a really popular service, as well as Dr. Bike free cycle repairs. We also do a lot of work with community groups and partner with them to encourage them to walk and cycle and create their own initiatives in their communities. We work with schools on the TFL Travel for Life program, and generally try and spread the message about why it's important to try to walk, wheel and cycle if you're able to for some of those particularly short journeys across the borough. Thank you. I'm going to hand back to Louise, I think. Thank you.
Okay,
yep.
So I think it's the sun now, isn't it? Yes.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
I'll take this. So, yeah, just to touch on what is a quieter neighbourhood. So, quieter neighbourhoods form part of a comprehensive approach to reduce the speeds and volumes of vehicles in neighbourhoods. So we got the goal of creating an attractive and safe environment for people to travel by active and sustainable modes, such as walking, cycling, and public transport. So a quieter neighbourhood can include a range of features, which we'll be touching on in further detail slightly later on in this presentation. So in terms of the objectives for a quieter neighbourhood, they're to create safer streets, first and foremost for residents in the local community. We want to enable people to walk, wheel and cycle, as well as access public transport. So just give them more access to those sustainable modes of travel. And then in addition, we want to improve the health and amenity of the local environment, and as well as improving the physical health of people living within a quieter neighborhood. So why Edmonton Green? Well, Edmonton Green has been chosen due to a number of factors. So firstly, looking at the indicators across the borough, it was identified this area had lower air quality when compared with other areas in Enfield. So there was opportunities here to improve the air quality. And then similarly, looking at health and deprivation indicators, it was also identified there was opportunities that we could improve that through active travel. So there's also a number of schools within the area which could benefit through from quieter neighborhoods initiatives such as school streets. And additionally, there's also amenities in the area which could be accessed by active travel. So we're just trying to make that more accessible. And then also identified there's a high number of collisions for vehicles, pedestrians and cyclists. So we're trying to make that safer. And lastly, this Edmonton Green area has a comparatively high population density, meaning that the proposed benefits that we can deliver should be able to reach more people, so we can make a bigger difference. Thank you. And I'll pass on to Brian to just touch on the design features. I think you're on mute, Ryan.
Sorry. So here are some of the design features that we're looking in this area. So first we can see wayfinding. These can be signs or markings that are that help users navigate within designated routes. Next there is school streets, and school streets help create a safer space for students by reducing vehicle movements near school entrances throughout the drop-off and pickup times. Next, we have modal filters. These are features that use to reduce the volumes of motor vehicles through journeys at specific locations, while still allowing pedestrians and cyclists to filter through. Next is bus gates. These are similar to modal filters. However, these also allow buses through the location in addition to pedestrians and cyclists. Next, we have traffic calming measures. These are physical features used to help reduce speed of traffic passing through the area to make roads safer for all users. And then last on this list, we have a controlled parking zone, or a CPZ. This is an area where parking is restricted to permit holders only during stated times. So next we have the proposed interventions within the area. So within this boundary, we have within the boundary of the dashed line, we have proposed a CPZ and a 20-mile-per-hour zone throughout the entire area. These currently exist in some parts of this neighborhood, but not all. So I'm going to split this into two different areas. So we have north of Salmon Brook and south of Salmon Brook. So north of Salmon Brook, we are looking at introducing a modal filter on Monmouth Road and a bus gate on Town Road to help reduce the through traffic in this area. There are questions within the survey that ask residents if they prefer these restrictions to be only active during certain hours of the day or 24/7. We are also looking at changing some of the roads to one-way traffic, which can help reduce the friction between drivers. And then on Town Road, we are also looking at removing or relocating footway parking to the carriageway, as this can be an issue with access to the pavement. So south of Salmon Brook, we are looking at introducing a bus gate on Plevna Road and a modal filter on Brettenham Road. Similar to those in the north of the area, we are considering if these should also be only active during specific hours or 24/7. Next, we have school streets on the roads surrounding Fleecefield Primary School and Brettenham Primary School. These would be active during school drop-off and pickup times. We also have 2 on-carriageway cycle routes proposed in the area, which are indicated by the brown and blue dashed lines on the map. These areas, in this area, the traffic volumes would be low enough for cyclists to safely mix with general traffic. So we would provide some wayfinding features that would help with navigation. Also in this area, we have some changes to the roads and some one-ways proposed throughout this area. And then we also have some potential traffic calming measures on Cuthbert Road that's located in the southwest corner of the neighborhood. So for design features, accessibility, and equalities, we have the Equalities Act 2010, which defines the following as protected characteristics, which will continue to be considered throughout the design. So we have age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion and belief, sex, sexual orientation. In addition to that, Enfield Council also considers socioeconomic status and care experience as additional characteristics. So now I'll pass it over to Liz.
Thanks, Ryan. So a bit about the communications and engagement for the project. We've got a project page, which is on the Let's Talk Enfield website. The links there and the QR code that's on the screen can take you to that page. I'm sure many of you have visited it already. You can share your views via the survey at that page. It's under the survey tab. I've got a picture on another slide, and that is open until the 11th of February. You've also got the proposed plan that you can view on the page, as well as lots of other information. Yes, so please do check that out if you haven't already. Next slide. So these are some of the things that we've done to engage the local community on this quieter neighbourhood. So we did deliver a letter on the 17th of January to inform residents and businesses in the area that this proposal was ready to be viewed and that there was an opportunity to comment. We've also been promoting this opportunity on social media, both on the Journeys and Places pages, so that's Facebook and X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as the council channels as well. We've now hosted 2 community drop-in sessions at Edmonton Green Library, so thank you everybody for coming to those if you dropped by. We've got tonight's webinar, obviously. We've also been engaging key stakeholders such as Transport for London and emergency services, which will occur throughout the life of the project. On the project page, we'll be posting updates and any further revisions of the designs. So yeah, they'll all be posted on the project page as well as project updates as we progress. And the project page will also host information on the statutory consultation on the draft traffic order, which will hopefully happen later in 2024. So a bit more about the project page. Again, there's a link and the QR code that will take you there. This hosts a range of information. I've spoken a little bit about it already, but the proposed plan for the project, frequently asked questions, key dates for the project, information on upcoming webinars and events, anything like that, engagement and consultation surveys and activities. So if you were engaged at the start of in just after summer last year, we also hosted an online interactive map. So yeah, really all of the activities are run through here, and the information about in-person events, notices of upcoming traffic orders, and like I said, project updates as well. This is an image of the project page and where you can find the survey. So there's a bit of text and an image on the main body of the project page, and then if you scroll down, you can see that there's a number of different tabs. So please click into the survey tab and take it there. Next slide will also explain, you can also write to us at the council or email us at journeysandplaces@enfield.gov.uk. I'm passing back to Ryan, I think. Thank you.
Yep. So this is the current timeline of the project. So previously in the autumn, we did early engagement. Following that, we produced an engagement finding report and published that, which can be found on the webpage. And then we developed this concept design that we're presenting here. And then you can see where we're currently at. We're on the engagement on potential design. So our next step, we'll get all the feedback and we will put that into a report and publish that. From there, we'll use the report to kind of help us develop our designs further. After that, there will be a decision to proceed with the project or not. And then if the decision is to implement, we will implement. And then following implementation, we'll have a post-implementation monitoring. And I think that it's back to Louise now.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll leave the proposed design on screen throughout the Q&A session now so that you have it to refer to. And the QR code is still there as well, so that you can use your phone to download that link to find where to complete the survey if you haven't already. What we'll now do is go to the Q&A session. So we've got about 40 minutes for this. What I'll do is I'm taking the questions that have been posted and I'll read them out to the panel and they will answer them for you one by one. Okay, so our first question is, will I be able to drive my car through a modal barrier as I'm a resident and live in the area?
I can do this one. So if we're looking at potentially time closures or 24/7 closures for the modal filters, when the modal filter is active, it'll be closed to everyone, including residents. If you're outside of those hours, then you'll be able to drive through. But yeah, that'll be closed to everyone that's not either a cyclist or a pedestrian.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. And then in regards to the controlled parking zone, the question is, will you have to pay for a residence permit to park the car on the street? And will they have to pay for parking? Will there be parking tickets to be paid for any visitors that come to their property? How will that work?
I can do this one as well. So there will be for residence permits, you'll have to pay for that. It depends on a few factors. So there's size of the engine of the car, if the CPZ is a part-time or full-time, and how many current CPZs you have within the household. As for visitors, there is a way you can get visitor passes. I think you purchase a pack of 10 of those through the parking services, and then you could distribute those to visitors.
Great. So I think just following on from that, is there any difference on Saturdays or Sundays? Is it a 5 days of the week or 7 days of the week?
That's still to be determined.
Okay. The next question again on controlled parking zones is it a proposal for 24 hours a day? And again, you know, you've already mentioned it's still to be determined whether it's 5, 6 or 7 days a week. And will there be any differences for bank holidays as well?
Yeah, that's still kind of determining. We're determining that during this process, because if you look at the survey, we do have some options on there for keep the CPZ as is, have a full-time CPZ, or only during event days. So once we determine that, then we could give more specifics on this.
Okay, great. And I think the next question relates to modal filters, in that can Tesco, Amazon, other delivery drivers be allowed through to deliver?
Yeah, I could do this. They won't be able to drive through the filters. However, access to all residential streets will still be maintained, so they will be able to access your property.
Okay. What streets outside of the controlled parking zone will be available to park in for free? And how will those streets cope with any additional traffic or additional parking?
In terms of the what streets outside the controlled parking area will be available, it's still to be determined what is the full scope of the controlled parking zone. So that's one of the things that we're taking feedback on in this phase of engagement. And we'll be available to park for free. Yeah, Brian touched on earlier, just in terms of the requirement for permits in the areas that we will introduce controlled parking zones. And in terms of the question on will those streets cope with the extra traffic, so we're currently doing we're undertaking traffic data analysis to look at the impacts, and we're going to be doing more detailed analysis as the design progresses to make sure that we have a good understanding of the impacts on the roads and surrounding areas. But based on previous quieter neighborhoods, what we generally find is there is usually a significant reduction in traffic on the local residential roads inside the quieter neighborhood area, and the additional traffic that tends to result on the boundary roads is not as proportionally large as the decrease on the local roads. And also those roads are generally designed to deal with a larger capacity traffic. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And coming back to the controlled parking zones, are there any exemptions in terms of blue badge holders, or if people have carers visiting their properties?
That is something that we're looking at. In terms of exemptions, yeah, I think it's still to be, yeah, we're still working out the detail on that, but yeah, that is something we are considering.
Okay, great. Seating, we've mentioned public realm in the presentation. There's a question on whether there's any additional seating to be included within the quieter neighbourhoods area. Oh, Ryan, you're muted.
Sorry. So you said seating?
Yeah. Will there be any additional seating?
We're kind of still early in the design process right now, so that is definitely something that we'll consider in the detailed design. But as this is just a concept design, we haven't gone into those details yet, but that is always something that we're looking at, as it helps with the healthy score indicators.
Okay, great, thank you. And in terms of modal filters, will they be camera controlled as recommended by emergency services, or will they be bollards?
Those would be camera controlled as that for two reasons. It allows emergency services to still go through those, and so there's no impact to them. And then also, if we wanted to do time closures, it allows us that flexibility to be able to have times.
Okay, and we've mentioned improving air quality. There's a question here in terms of how air quality will be monitored on the surroundings, so the boundary roads, if traffic is displaced there, and what sort of air quality monitors will be used and where will they be proposed to be sited?
Yeah, I can answer that. So generally we, with school streets, we generally install air quality sensors surrounding the areas. So in terms of the exact locations, that's to be determined. That'll be figured out in detailed design. But in terms of the air quality indicators that led to this, a lot of that information comes from the London Atmospheric Emissions Index, which provides a general overview of the air quality health indicators such as particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide matter concentrations across a borough. So you can kind of get a high level overview of where the areas are kind of lacking in air quality.
Okay, thank you. And can we just clarify on the blue badge exemption in terms of how it will be available around modal filters as well as the controlled parking zones? We'd like to take that.
I can pick that one up if you like.
Okay, thanks, Christina.
Yeah, so for modal filters, but you could just clarify. So I think Ryan sort of mentioned that they would be operated by a camera, which means that exempted vehicles can pass through them unhindered. So that would include emergency service vehicles. And you may or may not be familiar with a couple of other quieter neighbourhoods in Enfield. They operate with a blue badge holder exemption permit system. And so a blue badge holder who lives within the area, within the quieter neighbourhood area, would be able to apply for a permit to exempt a vehicle, so that they would also be able to drive through the modal filter without receiving a penalty charge notice in the nominated vehicle. So that's something that we'd be looking to replicate at this quieter neighbourhood as well.
Okay, great, thank you. And in terms of the timeline, why is there such a long period between the decision going ahead and implementation?
I can do this. Yeah, so once there's a decision to go ahead, so we have to draft a traffic order, make a traffic order, and we have statutory consultation. And so there's kind of a lot happening between those periods before we could implement, and a lot of things that we have to check off before implementation. And so that's kind of why there's a bit of a period between those.
Okay, and are you looking at any more quieter neighbourhoods in the Edmonton area for the future?
I can answer that. We look at we have kind of quieter neighbourhoods across the Enfield area that we look at, and in terms of we go through a prioritization process internally in terms of identifying which of the areas that we would be looking at, but as of now we don't have any current plans.
Okay, thank you. And what about additional planting or improving greenery in the area? Are there any plans for that as part of this design?
Yeah, I think yeah, that's definitely something that we would look into. Adding greenery to the neighborhood makes it a bit more attractive and pleasant for residents. So that is something that we would look into and consider throughout the detailed design phase.
Thank you. And when it comes to the new cycle routes, will they be branded as TfL cycleways? Talked about way marking, so how will that look? How will that work?
At this point, not sure. We would probably have to coordinate with TFL on that if they would like to have that as a wider cycleway, signed cycleway route.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. In terms of funding, how will this be funded? Does it come from council capital?
Yeah, I can answer that. It comes from a number of pots, council capital being one of them, but partly, but also other sources of funding such as TFL also fund projects like this.
Thanks, Hassan.
Section 106 as well, sorry.
Yeah, okay, Section 106s as well, thank you. In terms of the controlled parking area, parking zone, how will that directly lead to improvements in air quality?
So CPZ would stop people from coming through into the area to park for either visiting the Edmonton Green Shopping Center or parking there for events, or parking there to use the public transport, as the Edmonton Green overground station is there and several bus routes. So locally it would reduce the amount of trips entering the area.
And I think we've already covered this really, but in terms of what's the expected impact on the boundary roads and the surrounding streets from the interventions in place? Yeah,
so that is something that we'll have to take we have done some traffic surveys, and we'll have to our design team is looking at potential impacts and analyzing the data, and once we have that, we'll know exactly what we believe the impacts would be. Great, thank you.
I'm perhaps you could tell me a bit more about how school streets work, how they've been effective in other areas, and the likely impact for Edmonton Green.
Yep. So how school streets work. So we essentially set up filters for closures during pickup and drop-off times on the streets surrounding the schools. Adjacent to the schools, and that essentially restricts vehicles from traveling through those streets during those pickup and drop-off times, making it safer for the kids getting to and from school, and also reducing the number of pollutants, the amount of pollutants in the air, so improving the air quality and just making it safer. And in terms of enforcement, that's done via cameras at the entry points, and generally residents are still allowed to enter their roads at all times, but this is just stopping people, I guess, that inundation of vehicles during those pickup and drop-off times.
I'll just add a little bit more around the operation of that, because I think it's important to note that the school street, the timings of that is related directly to the timings of the school street itself, so the school. So at pickup and drop-off times, as Hassan had previously mentioned. With regards to the modal filters with the bus gate, so they're shown in green or in the sort of yellow symbol, the lighter yellow symbol on the screen. We've got a question in the survey around what times they would operate, and so they would be operating at different times to the school street itself, so school hours, and we've got some options proposed in the survey about what potential operating times the modal filters would operate at.
Great, thanks, Christina. And what about local businesses in the area? How are they likely to be impacted upon through the proposed interventions?
Yeah, so we're currently surveying all the businesses in the area and trying to gather their feedback and see any impacts that they foresee, so that we could help get ahead of that and mitigate anything. But as we're not blocking off any roads for them, they'll still be able to access everything, and they'll still be able to access every area within these neighborhoods. We think that will be limited.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions in terms of any of the design aspects or implementation, timings? Liz, do you want to maybe just highlight how the findings from the early engagement have impacted upon this initial draft design?
Yeah, sure. So we ran the first phase of engagement with the community in September, October last year. And like I mentioned, we ran an online interactive map, a couple of drop-in sessions to speak with the community, and a webinar like tonight. And we heard lots of different comments about what people's ideas for the area were, as well as any current issues that they saw that they thought could be addressed through a Quieter Neighbourhoods initiative. The engagement summary report is available to view on the project page. So basically, us as the project team read all of the comments that we received. Sorry, we also ran workshops in schools, so we heard from young people as well, and we did a similar exercise in talking to businesses and some community groups as well. So we did hear from lots of different people and through lots of different channels. And yeah, we took people's ideas and suggestions, as well as looked at the issues that people were facing in the area at the moment. And they informed this design. So yeah, like I said, that report is available to view on the project page if people would like to look at that. And similarly, we'll be producing a report after this engagement phase. So that will be published on the project page within the next couple of months. And the designers and our project team will be taking note of all the comments received to inform the detailed design for the project. That will then, in terms of the next stage of engagement and opportunity to comment, that will be during the statutory consultation, where we'll be presenting a more detailed plan and a draft traffic order where people can make objections and representations on that.
Great, thank you, Liz. If we don't have any more questions, I think we're ready to wrap up for this evening. Oh, here we are. We've got one more question through. I think that covers everything off, actually. Oh, here we are. Have you considered the impact of isolation on those who might have reduced visitors due to the interventions?
Yeah, I can pick that one up. So I think one thing we have mentioned, but it is really important to mention with the modal filters, is that all properties do remain accessible by motor vehicle. You just might need to take a slightly different route to do so. So visitors can absolutely access every property within the area by motor vehicle, or at any time sort of by other modes. Also, I think if you have a concern about that, I think we'd love, if you haven't already, please do get in touch with us via our survey and provide that feedback, because that can help to shape the future designs as we progress them.
Okay, thank you. And I know we've already covered off TfL funding, but I think there's a question to just ask for a little bit more clarity on whether the council has applied for TfL funding for this project and what the outcome may be.
Yep, we have applied for funding for this project, and we do have some funding from TfL yeah, for this project.
Okay, thanks. There's a question here that the only days the town road area has congestion issues are days where there are many visitors to the Greek church for key services. Can timings be tailored to those?
Yep. So we we're currently we've met with the Greek Church, and we're currently going to meet with all the churches around the area as well, and discuss that with them on how we could limit any impacts to their services, and so yeah, that is something that we can consider in the future. We don't have the answer on specifics on the timings yet, but that is something in consideration.
Great, thank you. Just coming back to the controlled parking zones, obviously there have been a lot of questions regarding controlled parking zones this evening. If you actually go onto Enfield Council's website, there is an area on controlled parking zones where you can find more information on how they work and how you can apply for permits. So that may be able to answer some of your questions from this evening. And I think that has maybe wrapped up this evening. Are there any other questions? No. Okay, right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your time this evening. As we said at the beginning of the presentation, the FAQs on the website will be updated and the recording will be posted on the website as well. If you haven't already completed the survey, please do so. It will close just before midnight on the 11th of February. Thank you very much for your time.